Yep, I got it. You have to like turn it on. Yeah, there.
Well, I was. My apologies to online participants. We started, but we had some technical difficulties. But now we will begin with a summary of last week in person. Yes, I was talking. So inshallah, we will continue. Apparently, you are not alone in not hearing me. Please continue, Dorothy.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. So for last week's summary, at least the way I thought of it is this bigger question of like, who do we worship? And then do we think our strength is coming from our own credential, or are we giving it to the right owner? And we had this kind of contrast between the student of philosophy and student that is not following the philosophy, and I can't think of the exact word, but maybe there's the Quran, thank you. Um and kind of how each is thinking about the world and the benefit and harm of that. And some of the examples that were given was like, for example, let's say you had a boss and you're trying to make them happy and try to get some sort of favor from them, then are you thinking that that boss is ultimately what's gonna get you whatever job you're looking for? And ultimately that comes with a lot of fear and instability, versus if you had been the student of the Quran, you would have recognized that that person does not really have the power to give you any job or anything like that. So you would have given the right owner, I guess, you're right, something like that. But yeah, so that's
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
short.
I think like especially we had discussed this notion of self-sufficiency, right? And how under this umbrella of philosophy, various ideologies, I mean, we find it in our societies today too, that say, okay, like you have to be self-sufficient. I have to provide for myself. I have to take care of myself. But in taking that notion in, what I end up what ends up happening is that I end up begging at the doorsteps of everything else, right? Oh, I have to be self-sufficient. Well, I'm dependent on my boss. I'm dependent on this paycheck. I'm dependent on this professor for this grade, for this success, right? I'm dependent on this person for love, compassion in my life. I'm dependent on this food for nourishment. So I see things as sources within themselves, right? And I get stuck um, in the apparent causes, let's say. So this false illusion of self-sufficiency leads me to complete dependency on everything else, right? Whereas in this path of seeking or being a student of the Quran, right? When I recognize that I can't be self-sufficient even if I want to, even if I want to be, right? I definitely have this desire to not want to be dependent on others, and that's I should reflect upon that state of being, that want. But I also recognize that I'm unable to provide for myself either, right? I mean, even just physically, I have no idea how my body's operating, what's going on. So I can declare that, yes, I have needs, and I have a lot of needs. I have physical needs, I have needs for sustenance, nourishment, I have needs for emotional well-being, being valued, feeling secure, right? I have so many different needs. But then what do I do with these needs instead of distributing them to all the different sort of apparent causes in my life and trying to expect it? Okay, in the academic realm, I expect it from my professor. In the financial realm, I expect it from my company. From this, that, instead of doing that, I recognize, okay, whoever gave me these needs must be the one to provide for them. So I return them to their source of existence, right? And by returning them or acknowledging that, yes, I have these needs, but the one who gave them to me, the one whom I call my creator, is the one who is in fact responsible for meeting them, then that grants me not self-sufficiency, but a sense of independence from anything else that is also created like me, from any other human being, from any other entity that is also subject to the same conditions, same change, same problems as I am, right? So it rescues me from that state of beggary, if you will. It rescues me from that state of abasement, if you will. But that comes from recognizing, yes, I am weak. I am completely in need, but that this isn't something that should take me down when I direct it to the one who gave it, right? Any other thoughts on this second principle? Any remaining questions, comments on this? Did you want to say something? Yeah.
I was pointing to
Brother Rikhan? Okay, do we have the mic?
There's one point we discussed last week, which is about the akhirah as well. Like there was hard. It was saying the word was ukhravi, like related to akhirah, but he is self-sufficient due to the wealth which his all-generous Lord has stored up for him in the hereafter. And this is the half translator understood it. It's just like the wealth of hereafter. Like I wanted to say something about that, but because the point you made is also important, let me continue from there if you don't mind. So it is really the interesting the way we think about freedom and individual rights, self-sufficiency, personal, I don't know, the empowerment, whatever. How we think about them, how we've been taught about them, how society shaped them around us, and how we are expected to, fulfill such, let's say, the goals, and how it is presented here. Like here, at least to me, the picture is completely just the opposite of how I've been thinking about them. For us, the empowerment, self-sufficiency, and the freedom lies in the understanding of, as you said, the self-sufficiency, that I'm powerful, I can do it, you can achieve it. Like this is how we usually, encourage each other. Right? Oh, come on, Sarah, I trust you. You can do it. And you have everything you need to do it. In Turkish, we have an interesting saying. When we try to encourage other people, it's literally translates as, "Oh, it wouldn't hurt even they cut you." Like this kind of type of, the encouragements we have. But the author says, if you take this path, it may give you, just like taking a drug, an immediate and temporary pleasure, maybe. But then at the end, you will end up with misery. Because if you think you have the power, that you have to take yourself on your shoulder and carry the power with you to achieve something, then you realize that everybody else also has to carry that. So everybody on its own, right? Then when you realize how heavy and how difficult any task is in front of you, you just feel nothing but disappointment. Like I have that much power I can carry, I can have, and it's not enough. So I have to look at others, ask for help, and then when we fail collectively, my disappointment is even better. Or when we achieve it, then I become their slaves. Every time now I need some other people and so on. So this path of so-called empowerment, self-sufficiency, freedom, takes me to slavery, takes me to begging everyone else, everything in the universe, not even, the living organisms, but everything, even the stone, right? When I hit my pinky to my furniture, I get angry with my furniture because my expectation is that my furniture should help me and just go the other direction when I walk. This is the way I live. And when it doesn't happen, I get angry. On the other side, on the opposite side, when I realize that I don't have any power, it gives me the real, actual freedom. Then I don't have to pretend then I don't have to try to carry something that I cannot. Or carry something tiny and hope that it will be enough for everything. I don't have to do that anymore. I say, whatever power I need, it will come from the one who creates me, who creates the problem in front of me, who can put this giant ball of fire, right, on my top, the sky to heat me up. So he has that much power. Obviously, he can carry this, the weight in front of me as well. Now I don't have any disappointment. I don't have any, the anxiety, and I'm free of anyone else. Nobody can threaten me. Nobody can, sell me something or buy me out. I'm free. So the freedom in real sense comes from realization that you are nothing but an abd. You have needs, and these needs are satisfied. This is the real freedom. So every time we read this text, I get excited. In past, I was so into this freedom idea. And then, when you realize this is the freedom that you've been looking for, say, Alhamdulillah, such a, the ideology, such a worldview the Quran gives you makes you free. Jazakallah. About Ahira, I talk too much. It can wait.
Maybe we'll throw in a few other voices and then return back to that. Any other final thoughts? Remaining questions on second principle? If not, inshallah, let's turn to the third principle now. And again, these principles are all related to each other. It's a continuation of the same topic, if you will. Any volunteers to read? Just read. Though I might ask for your thoughts after, but initially just read. You want to read, Kadir?
There's Libras.
Oh, okay. The infamous.
Let's do less work. Is this on?
This is microphone. Let's start from there. You need to clear it. Now it's on.
Third principle. The training philosophy and science and Quranic wisdom give to human social life is this. Philosophy accepts force as its point of support in the life of society. It considered its aims to be benefits. The principle of its life it recognizes to be conflict. It holds the bond between communities to be racialism and negative nationalism. Its fruits are gratifying the appetites of the soul and increasing human needs. However, the mark of force is aggression. The mask of benefits, since they are insufficient for every desire, is jostling and tussling, while the mark of conflict is strife. And the mark of racialism, since it is nourished by devouring others, is aggression. It is for these reasons that it has negated the happiness of mankind. As for the Quranic wisdom, its point of support is truth instead of force. It takes virtue and God's pleasure as its aim in the place of benefits. It takes the principle of mutual assistance as the principle of life in place of the principle of conflict. And it takes the ties of religion, class, and country to be the ties bonding communities. Its aim is to form a barrier against the lusts of the soul, urge the spirit to sublime matters, satisfy the high emotions, and urging man to the human perfections, make him a true human being. And the mark of the truth is accord. The mark of virtue is solidarity. The mark of mutual assistance is hastening to assist one another. The mark of religion is brotherhood and attraction. And the mark of reining in and tethering the soul and leaving the spirit free and urging it towards perfections is the happiness in this world and the next.
Jazakumullah khair. Any initial thoughts, questions, anything you want to share? You don't have to, but if you would
Not
like
at the
to.
moment.
Not at the moment. Okay. All right. Okay, well, I'll give all of you a moment to think about it, and as you think about it, I'll share what I am thinking about it. I mean, this is again, this umbrella of philosophy, right? Any ideology that sees its own reason as sufficient without the need for any revelation, without the need for guidance, right? I mean, this is it takes force as its point of support in life of society. It recognizes as its primary principle conflict. I mean, this is like an example that we oftentimes give, particularly like Brother Birkan gives. But whenever we look at documentaries, like this is what we see, right? Survival of the fittest, right? That's in between animals, but this is also a society that designates me as an animal. And this is what I experienced, like from my academic career, from childhood to now. It's like, oh, you know that classmate, like Zareen, she's sitting next to you. She's your competition. There's only one spot for that university you want, and it's either her or you. So immediately, this ideology pits her as my competitor, right? Someone I have to squash. And most times she'd squash me. So that's not a competition I want to enter, right? But this is the case. You want that job? 300 people are going to apply for it. You have to stand out. You have to have the best resume, pad your CV, whatever, right? My loved ones even are my competitors, right? There's limited resources in this worldview, whether it's a job, a position, an academic, honor, whatever. And even, like overpopulation, someone entered the apartment today saying, why is there so many people here? It's like, this planet, limited resources, limited land, man. Like, why are there so many people? It's limited, this mindset of scarcity, right? Because, yeah, I mean, there is the resources here. When we look at them in and of themselves, they do seem very scarce. Water, I don't know, there's a chocolate shortage or something coming up. Like, we're like, oh no, like I have to stock up. I have to guarantee my own sustenance, whether that sustenance is food, physicality, or even like, like this person, they can marry one person. I hope they choose me, not this other person, right? Scarcity of value, of love, of compassion. Like this is the sort of, when it says conflict, force as its point of support, that's what it is. Like everything is a battle. Oh, you get sick? You better battle that sickness. Like this is the language that we use as well, of warfare, of battling, of fighting, right? Like we were talking about what K-dramas, or is it others, or like they say fighting, it's supposed to be like, we're like, yeah, we're striving, but even the language is so they're all laughing, so that's accurate.
We've been fighting COVID, for instance, right?
Sure, I mean COVID.
All the terminologies during the COVID was from the military.
Well, you don't have the mic, brother.
Like every
You press the
word.
button.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Every word they used during the COVID, it was borrowed from the military.
Yeah.
It was always like the frontline workers.
Frontline workers. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can remember, but there were a few more that been using.
Right. And the
constantly.
enemy is invisible.
Yes.
So how do we prepare?
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
Even our, the president, who's supposed to be, I mean, he is, let's say, a religious person. He was saying that we will fight against COVID and we will beat it, and so on. That was the language. It was always military.
National security.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like like it doesn't have to be COVID. You see the billboards as you're driving. It's like struggling, fighting against back pain, or the commercials. Like these are again, like everything in my life. This worldview, whether you call it philosophy, whether you call it whatever you want to call it, like if the substance of it matches, this worldview says whatever you experience in your life, you have to fight against it. It's a battle, and you have to triumph. Might is right. And whether we might be pacifists, but this is still like, I have to fight against these emotions. I have to, and like there's nuance there in terms of what it means to fight against something, but this is kind of like when I reflect over the ideologies that are presented to me, and that I also wholeheartedly, without question, just eat up and not question them and accept, like, yeah, this is the truth. This is the worldview that I am offered, right? Any other thoughts, questions, now that I've given you a moment to actually think about it? The sisters look like they're thinking hard with their texts. What about the brothers? They're thinking hard in the air. Yeah, okay.
Maybe I can ask a question.
Please.
So, what does it mean that it's not force but truth, which is the point of support? Like, shall we not make investment in weapon industry? Like, what shall we do? Otherwise, those, like, since we are in America, let's take China as the arch enemy. So Russians or Chinese, they are investing on power tools. Like, and what are we going to invest on? Truth? What is truth? Like, what is our point of support? What do you mean? Of course, we have to get the weapon of the enemy and get as strong as they are and beat them up. Are we not? What does this say?
A very valid question. What do we think? You have any thoughts? Yeah.
When I think about your question, like what comes to mind is the next line that says like it takes virtue and God's pleasure as its aim in the place of benefits. So I think it's that like if you're really trying to protect the message and everything, and the goal that you're trying to achieve is getting the virtue and God's pleasure, then you like invest in all of that. But if your point of investing in all of that weapon industry and everything is just that so that you can beat China and be better than them, and it's nothing more than that, then I think it's a point of force. But when it becomes the pleasure of God and like spreading the message or saving the message, then I think it's what the Quranic wisdom is, and that is the truth. That is like what comes to mind when I think about your question.
So, I mean, just to open it up a little more. So let's say, let's change it, not America versus China, but like Muslim world versus non-Muslim world. And Muslim world or Muslim countries, if there are any out there. So they would say that, well, for the sake of Islam, now we need to develop this weaponry and then beat them up. Because otherwise, with all those planes and rockets and nuclear weaponry and everything, they are going to beat us up. So if I use such a language, whose language am I using in this case? And if this is wrong language, then what would be the right language in there? And is it supposed to be no weaponry at all? Or where's the mistake in this language? Because this idea is very common, especially when you listen to any political Islamist attitude. This is what you will see there. We are beaten up so badly so far, and now it's our turn to push back and beat them up, and we're going to beat them the way they beat us. So this is generally being the attitude. But where do I stand here?
We had a hand here. Okay. We'll go through our two and then Zareen, inshallah.
Yeah, I guess what I was thinking of is not necessarily like you buying the weapon, but you giving the power of that weapon. Like even with the weapon, recognizing that you can lose. So like, is it the weapon that's making you win or lose, I guess, versus like, because I feel like then you're worshiping that thing, which would be going back to our initial principles that we've been reading up to this point, where you've now given power to this weapon and you're like, okay, if I have XYZ amount of weapon and technology, it's definite that I win. But that's not true. So I think that's maybe where it goes wrong, not necessarily buying the weapon.
So I guess I was kind of reminded of Surat al-Fil, so the Battle of the Elephant, and sort of like the context surrounding that. When like the armies with the elephants were coming to attack the Kaaba, And at the time, the Prophet ﷺ's grandfather was the caretaker, and he was asked, I think, along the lines of, these armies are coming. What are we going to do? We have to like protect the Kaaba. And I think he said something along the lines of like the owner of the Kaaba will protect it. So that's kind of how I kind of see like the owner of truth will protect truth. So is it up to me to like, show like participate in this like competition to like sort of serve as this like I guess like trophy for Islam, like show like bringing myself to the top to quote unquote like show what Islam can be or something like that? Or is it like I guess I'm thinking like I shouldn't see myself as this like guardian of like Islam or something, or like so like its defender. I don't think that's the point, but rather relying on the one who like owns like this truth to like provide guidance and like take support from the source of truth directly, rather than thinking that I have some share and that like I can like protect it or bring it to glory or something like that through my actions.
Mike. So say it into the mic, Sarah, please.
Should we wait for the, what are they called? The sigil, the tire sigil in the surah, yeah, to protect the birds. But what is like from hell, right? I think they had whatever. Everyone understands what tire sigil is to protect like the, what's going on. And I didn't understand your point. Are we supposed to be just passive and wait for Allah's sending like the stones of hell from hell, or should we fight and buy weapons and like
So the question here is, where does individual action, collective action, what is the place of that, right? That is Sarah's question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like also just more coming from like Durartu's point of like we shouldn't be thinking of like the weapons or like the fighting as the like ultimate like goal or having the ultimate power, right? So like in that story, like everyone thought like these mighty elephants were gonna come and crush the Kaaba, but in the end they were defeated by like something as small as like a bird, well, a large group of small birds with stones. But anyway, I think the point is that like it isn't like these like material things that are like ultimately going to like the ones bringing about a certain outcome, like relying on a weapon, like isn't, from what I'm understanding, isn't like the point, because one day the weapon, like the rocket, might misfire or something. Like I guess like my point is similar to Durartu's in that like where do we think the power is actually coming from?
We have a hand there, and then we'll go to Kadira.
So the way I'm thinking about it is that, like, I don't think we can just disregard the weapons, because if we think about during the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, there were many battles that happened, Battle of Badr, Battle of Uhud, and the Sahaba at that time did pick up weapons. They did not just wait for the help of Allah or the help of the birds to come. So if the situation arises, I feel like that that's an action that you can take along with the help of Allah. Of course, the help from Allah came, but they also picked up the weapons.
I'll just build on top of what Ahmed said, and like I think it is very essential that we do like make weapons, but I think the real
Sorry.
I was going to come to the
You
point.
just to make sure, yeah. You said it is essential that we make it. Okay.
Yes, but the reason
No critics, I'm just, make sure that I didn't miss it. Yeah.
I can repeat it for you. It is essential that we do make weapons. but for the right cause. Because like if like, and you have to define that cause. Like if they're threatening the message of the creator, like if they're threatening the message of Quran, then you need to take up those weapons, and they're not going to drop from the sky. Like, so that is like what I'm trying to make, and how Dr. Yusuf even said this could become like a political thing, but like India, Pakistan, people would say like the battle between India and Pakistan, this is like because Islam and this is a non-Islamic country. But once you grow up and you see what everything is going on, you'll see like it's just a cultural battle. And a lot of Muslim countries are doing this. It's like they're just fighting battles on a cultural front, and then the armies, they're just trying to hold up that power, and they're just trying to fool people. They're trying to say, okay, we need to protect you. And I think the real thing is like, to answer your question, is like, what is your underlying like reason to do all of this? If the underlying reason is to protect the message, I think it is essential. But if it's not, then that's fine. Yeah, that's.
Please.
Another point I wanted to bring up and to discuss, see if I'm right, is that bringing it back to the theme of these principles is that, and because we're talking about weapons, is it the weapons themselves? Like, is it the power and the force of these weapons that are giving these people, the weapon bearers or the countries, this power or the value that they have? Is it the weapons or is it the truth? And I think it's worthy to discuss where this power is coming from, like whether it's coming from the weapons or whether it's coming from our creator, if that makes sense.
You want to say something? Yeah.
So, like to agree with Qadish, the miracle of Dawood alayhi salam was softening iron and making shield out of it and weaponry out of it. So there's a place definitely for that. But the comparison in here is, in our perception, we need to question ourselves. Where does the power come from? Is the power coming from the weaponry, or is the power coming from the truth itself? When it comes to, yes, somebody is attacking you, you're going to definitely make some weapons and whatnot and defend yourself. But do I feel like, I am on the right path because the people that's on my team has very strong weapons? Is this where my perception of strength is coming from? Or my team is strong because we say La ilaha illallah. Where does this strength come from? This is in the societal level. Of course, individual, because this understanding will bleed into my personal relationship as well. Like the position that I take is going to be applicable at the society level and also at individual level. Meaning, Brother Birkan is going to be stronger if he is wealthier. If I put value to strength, and if he is richer, whatever he says, if he says to, let's say, if he's a big donor to Penn, and he comes out and says, well, Aisha is not going to talk in our campus. Well, I mean, he gives money. Whatever he says is the truth. So this becomes my perception. Then I start bending before wealthy people rather than saying that, well, freedom of speech. And in our university, we allow people to freely talk. Who are you, you think? I would normally say, because truth would prevail. This is going to be on more maybe at personal level, how I bend before people. But when it comes to society level, and again, this is talking about us, how we look at the source of strength, or as he says here, point of support when it comes to society level. And if we pay attention to, and again, Qadir touched upon that, when we say Muslim countries, because Pakistan is an Islamic country, I mean, Islamic Republic of Pakistan or Islamic Republic of Iran. Turkey is a secular country, but in our heart, it's a perfectly religious country and whatnot. So when we say this and we say our country or us Muslims, what do we refer to? Where do we get this us from? Is us a matter of a nation, racialist nation, or is it people who is sitting next to or surrounding La ilaha illallah? What is, like, are we centered around a truth, which is where the source of strength comes from? Or is it that we are just, I don't know, we eat the same type of biryani and then we drink ayran and this and that. So, but it's more like Muslim-like. We have our style, and this is what bonds together. So if this is what bonds us together, as author will say, because all of them are coming one after the other, then yes, we start thinking that the source of power is weaponry or wealth, not the truth itself. And then we will start. So the comparison in here is between the two. Otherwise, it doesn't mean to say that, no, you're not going to have any weaponry. This, I mean, specifically, Dawood alayhi salam being mentioned as a king, yet a prophet, yet having like iron being soft in his hand, tells us a message. But are we rulers like Dawood alayhi salam? Because Dawood alayhi salam then sends a letter to the Queen of Sheba. How does it start? From the king of the kings of Dawood to, it doesn't start like that. It starts by saying in the name of Allah. So he's not acting on his own name. We don't see this in the letters of kings. It says from the king of kings, Alexander, to, I don't know, someone. So do we, I mean, in my personal life, I am, and also at the society level, are we surrounded, are we circling around the truth? Is it at the center? Or is it power that we worship to? I think this is the distinction that we need to make. And it makes a lot of difference how we act towards power.
Jazakumullah khair. So I know Kadir had his hand up.
It will be continuation, so probably go with me.
Yeah, I am going to go with him. And then we can go with Brother.
And then
Hannah. Okay.
And
So,
Abdurrahman was also here.
okay, he'll go last.
Mine is not continuation. If you, I was going to ask a new person.
It's all right, just go.
I want to go to the next thing is like the human relationship and like the relation of companionship and like friendship and how to navigate those things in your life. Like for example, if you do lose a friend and like you see that you need that friend in your life, and I try to believe that everything is from the creator and like even the friend that was given, but still like you do feel the need of a friend, and when you get a friend you feel like then like that feeling is the ratio, like that feeling then goes away. So how do you go by navigating that? How do you change that thing, like navigating friendships or navigating like companionships?
So just, can you make clear to me the relationship of that question to the text?
It says in here, its fruits are gratifying the appetites of the soul and increasing human needs. So that is how I thought, like, and it says like the Qur'anic wisdom give to social human life. So that is like, I consider those parts of like our, like the companionship and the friendship, all of those things as like part of human relationship. And if all of those are not, I think, defined in that way, they would be like gratifying the appetites of the soul. And
So is the question, how does one ought to cultivate human companionship through Quranic wisdom?
yeah,
Okay. So, Brother Vikram? Your turn. You're welcome.
We don't have Zaha today, right? No.
No.
I will talk some physics stuff, so that's the reason behind it.
I know physics.
Oh, you know physics? Okay. Then you can correct me if I say something silly. Okay. So the word here, the force. So I think that like there are two key points here. One is the point of support, and the other one is the aim. So with philosophy, the Quranic wisdom, the point of support is force and the aim is benefit. And then point of support is haq, the truth, and the aim is reza of God's pleasure. So truth, God's pleasure, force, and benefit. Within this framework, it seems the way author is using this word force is more, let's say, the generic maybe, than the idea of, the power I have or the weapons, like a power that weapons have. I don't know, Sial has some power and so on and so forth. But he's talking about, in general, right? When we look at the creation, we see things happening. This is what we see. Something moves, something jumps, something changes color, and so on and so forth. And we try to explain it, what is going on. Even at the, let's say, the most fundamental level, at the physics level, Abdurrahman, correct me if I say something wrong. At a physics level, I ask how it happens. And the explanation is through what? Forces. Right? It would say this thing it applies that much force on that thing and it moves. It attracts it or it repels it and so on and so forth. So explanation is about the forces acting. When we go slightly, higher level, let's say at the level of biology, now my friends will help, all of them. We say, okay, something happening in cells. How do you explain? What is the explanation? Forces, right? Something pushes, something, I don't know, again, attracts, something repels, some chemical reactions happen, which changes the electricity, the voltages, and so on and so forth, and it moves, we say. So explanation is always through some forces. And then we attribute these forces to things. We say this organelle has that much force, or that particle has that much force, and so on and so forth. Go higher level, explanation is always through forces. How your brain works, it's about some, the neurons acting in a certain way, firing, like weaponry. Firing, right? So they use their weaponry to fire each other. And from this, the battle, we see cognition emerging, the thinking. So this is how we see reality at every level. When it comes to society, the same thing. We see this force acts in this way, that force acts in that way. Through their conflicts, author says everything is explained through the conflicts. I don't remember the exact text, but just after the force, there's a conflict part. The explanation is always about conflicts. So this is how we explain things. And I'm not talking about how, the nations or countries act. Between mother and the children. How we explain? Through what? Conflict. We say the child trying to deceive mom to gain what she wants. So mom has to be, careful. This is how we explain. You shouldn't spoil your child. She has a force acting. Now, as a mother, you should use your force to counter. Through this conflict, what we observe, education. This is how we define. Educating a child is nothing but a conflicting forces. Between lovers, when you get married, what is the first the advice your parents give? Oh, watch your boundaries, or watch the other one's boundaries, right? The marriage is nothing but the balance. You have to keep the balance. What we mean is you have a force, she has a force, or he has a force. out of the conflict, you will find the balance. That's how we treat each other. So forget about the weapons and so on and so forth, right? Even between lovers, it's always a conflict. Even between mom and child, it's always a conflict, nothing more. This is how we see reality. And what is the goal? Is always a benefit. I'm doing it for the benefit of my child, we say, so that I will teach him something. This is my goal as a mother. They changed my voice. Now a little bit. Okay. As a mom, my goal is, teach my child, or as a father, I have to teach him something. The benefit, the goal. That's the aim. Between lovers, the same thing. For the sake of my marriage, I have to do that. The explanations are always around forces and conflicts. Now, author says this is the one world view. And on the contrary, Quran says something else. There's no such thing, author says, at least this is what I understand. Child trying to deceive mom or father, hence mom or father has to be ready. What is the word? Like always being ready for a fight? Prepare, but vigilant. We have to be vigilant, right? When they attack. Quran says there's no such thing. Whatever is happening, there is a face of it which looks at the creator, the haq, truth. What you are experiencing is about your creator and you. You should read it this way. If you are reading it another way, you are in the camp of what? Philosophy. If the explanation is about the conflicts, the forces, you are on the other side. You should be reading it in the name of truth, the names of God, the creator. What do you see there? And what is the goal? The pleasure of the creator. You're doing it for what? Not to train or educate your children. This is not your duty. Your duty is doing the right thing. The education will come from your creator. He will educate him or her. You're just supposed to do the right thing. The thing that would please your creator. That's your only worry. You don't care about winning the battle. You don't care about having the best children. You don't care about your marriage. You only care whether I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to do or not. Whether my creator would be pleased or not. If the question is whether I should have weapons or not, the answer is not whether you are fighting for the message, whether you are trying to protect the Islam or... No, this is not the answer. The answer is whether in this situation, if I have a weapon in my hand, whether my creator would be pleased or not. Whether it is the just thing or not. That's the question. The goal cannot be, the benefit cannot be our aim, author says. So this is a completely different worldview that we are not used to. When we, think about, for instance, the hunger and so on, what kind of the explanation in our minds we have? Be honest. Just like Sister Ashanur said, we think we have limited resources. And somebody has to distribute it justly. We have to achieve this as humanity to save other people from hunger. This is how we think. But when we look at the reality, we see that the food is so abundant. There's no limited resources at all. It's so abundant. I mean, the population is increasing, keep increasing and increasing. Still, the food we have is enough to make us obese. That much food we have. The population of America is increasing every year. The number of obese people increasing every year. You will find the same thing in most countries. Yes, there are some people, have the hunger and so on and so forth. But when you look at it, it's not because they don't have food, but because somebody stole their food from them at a nationwide level or whatever. So it's always abundant resources we have. And all we need to do the just thing, not to steal, not to destroy. Try to please your Lord, and everything will be great. Author says, at least this is what I understand. And when I say great, it doesn't mean everything will be so pink, everyone will start eating meat and so on and so forth. This is what I mean, not what I mean. But you got the idea, yeah, exactly.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much. I know Abdurrahman had a comment or question.
You said Force a lot, so I was thinking of Jedi Force, but I think you meant a different Force. I had just Brother Yusuf said something. I just wanted to make a comment on that, but I think Brother Rikan really touched on everything. But just to add, like finding support, finding strength in La ilaha illallah, or finding strength in truth, or like what's our point of support. Like I think I just wanted to add like the footnote or note there that this doesn't mean that, oh, I say La ilaha illallah, and now if the Muslims said it correctly and with sincerity and they did it perfectly, now every nation would fall to their knees before them, or they would conquer everyone else. Or because I said La ilaha illallah, I live very piously or something, now I will be so strong or have so much strength that I'll be able to get any job, do anything, succeed at everything I do. Like this is not this is where my mind goes, so I feel the need to say this, but it's not what the point of this is. Not the point of strength. The point of support is in the fact that, let's say something happens in my life, I face a conflict. I initially look at it as a conflict. Everything in my life is a conflict, but now because of trying to see the truth behind it, or trying to say La ilaha illallah, it stops becoming a conflict. And in fact, Nursi says it becomes, you're supposed to see it as a mutual assistance. It's supposed to be something that's supporting me. Something that I saw as a conflict is now supporting me. And that's where my strength comes. That's where my support comes. That's where now I feel relief. And really this concept of mutual assistance, I find it so difficult to wrap my mind around it, because really, as Brother Rikan said, everything in my life, I just look at it as conflicting forces, or forces against me, or me against them. Like if I see someone take something from me, I see it as immediately it's injustice. I have to stop it. I have to act against it. This is wrong. Might be, but at the same time, like I don't see it as assistance. I don't see like the assistance point of view there. And I'm thinking, how can I ever see something that I see as conflict as helping me? Or how is it supposed to be like mutual assistance where everything is helping each other? And again, I guess the only way is to try to read the truth behind it, or try to read the message behind it. Or in the previous one, we were saying like there is a wealth stored in the hereafter. I mean, the way I'm understanding is there's like a wealth stored in like the meaning of something, like the hereafter of it. So when I see a conflict, then I see, oh, this taught me this, or this can educate me in this. Like if I have a conflict in a family relationship or in a work relationship, then I'm like, what is this teaching me? What's the point of this? What am I to learn from this? Then that conflict can be like, oh, it's actually a messenger. This feeling that's coming, it's actually there to help me. It's a friend. Hunger, it's coming to tell me, oh, you're hungry, you're needy, you're weak. I could take it as an enemy, but it can also be a friend. So then, if I read it in the name of God, if I need it in the name of, the truth, like what's it pointing to? Just wanted to say that.
Jazakumullah khair. And I think this point of mutual assistance, we can dwell on it a bit more, in fact, right? Of how through this Qur'anic worldview, right? This worldview that shows me reality or allows me to see reality as it is without these ideologies that distort my view. If we think of them as like distorting lenses or those mirrors that we see at like carnivals, right? They don't give an accurate representation of how things are. And when I see a normal mirror, I'm like, oh, okay, this is how things actually are. So I take something, let's say, my professor fails me, let's say, okay. Of course I don't like this. I have an immediate dislike towards it. But instead of something that, and it doesn't mean I won't take my steps, try to do better, or try to, if it's a illegitimate failing, try to seek justice. But instead of being something that I fight against or something that I have to defeat, I say, while taking my steps, I say, oh, this is something through which my reality as a human being is being revealed to me, right? My neediness is being revealed to me. So the divine message there becomes something that is there to support me, assist me. I say, oh, this is part of my education. And similarly, maybe I write a terrible review for that professor. They see the review, it prevents them from getting tenure, let's say. Okay, it's an example. Again, doesn't mean they shouldn't try to take their steps, maybe find justice, whatnot, but instead of being something that is an enemy to them, right? They say, okay, this is being created from me, from my creator. How can I understand this in terms of how it looks to my connection to him, right? How it looks to my understanding of myself, my positionality within this world, and how is this, the existence of this event, educating me on that? So everything then, like the things I like, for sure, I can maybe it becomes more clear, but the things I dislike as well, I see the assisting education of it, the support of it, the friend of it, the angel of it, if you will. But I also want to take a moment. I'll give Brother Yusuf the mic, but I also want to take a moment to just remind us of the, I think, very important question that Kadir had raised, which is that, okay, like, how should we, when we think about cultivating friendships, companionships, relationships, what is the guidance that I should try to implement from the Quran in this, right? Because I seek these things in my life. I want to enjoy them as well. So how can I enjoy them? How can I have them in a way in which I am experiencing all these things of the second paragraph and not the first, right? So I think that's an important question that we should, at one point, if someone has something to contribute, return to as well. But Brother Yusuf, please go ahead.
As I was listening to some comments Brother Birkan made, on the side, I was also thinking from Sister Sarah's point of view and saying that what are the questions that she's not voicing right now? Because like since like we have kids, and sometimes I feel like Ali is manipulating me. Like in the morning, for example, he was just we put the the cloth on the floor and put our breakfast on it. We are going to eat it. He comes and says, "No, I'm going to take it off." And he's just protesting us, shouting, and starts crying. Like, come on, like we're going to eat breakfast, and you're not going to do anything with this cloth. And he starts being, I'm very angry with you and whatnot. Okay, I mean, you're just threatening me with his like anger, like you're making me mad. If you don't behave, I'm going to be even madder. I said, okay, come on. Then I just diverted his attention to somewhere else, because if you're playing with me, I'm going to play with you, kid. Okay, so like in practical life, this is how I am doing it. So then I said, well, the way if I were to take it, Brother Birkan did, what would I do with the kid? Like, it's a practical case. I have to have the breakfast. I have a meeting in 15 minutes. So what do I do with this kid right now? Do I just give in? Well, I shouldn't give in, but then what should I do? So because, I mean, in Sister Sarah's way, I guess you would say, well, doesn't this sound too naive? I'm blaming you, so that I'm not going to make this comment to Brother Birkan, so that she's doing it. I'm not. Okay. So, like, I mean, everything we discuss here, of course, applies to individual level, but the emphasis, especially for today's text is social life, because last week was for personal life. So today is more social life. So I would rather make it focus in there so that at least we can see what author is saying within today's text context. But so in there, I guess overall the questions are going in the right direction. Yes, I would like to cultivate a friendship, or I would like to defend my rights. Let's say I would like to establish a friendship, and this friendship is going to be, because the purpose of life is changing. Rather than putting force at the center or benefit at the center, I am putting achieving truth at the center. As a society, we are saying that the goal of this society is not to become wealthier and stronger, but the purpose of the society is to find truth and help each other to achieve truth. But while you are doing this, definitely there are going to be people who are going to pull you away, Satan-like people. And Satan is arch enemy, even the way Quran depicts it. So there's going to be like an enemy, and there might be a human Satan, like a devil, human devil, who is going to come and try to deviate you from your path. But what is going to be my attitude towards that person becomes the question when discussion comes to here. So let's try to then practically make a separation between the two. So the way Brother Birkan was presenting it is with your, because the two questions are separate. Brother Birkan's point in here, as I said, is what should be my attitude towards making a friend? That person is going to be a person for a friend with which we are going to gain more power, more wealth, or that person is going to be a, if you like, student friend or companion with which we are going to seek truth together. So I am seeking a friendship on the path to truth. Like somebody who is going, and this is how they say the Sahaba was, like a new revelation comes and say, oh, have you heard about the new verse? So what's it talking about? This was the topic of conversation. The topic of conversation among Sahaba was not, oh, have you seen Kobe Bryant's last shot or something like, oh, where's Borussia Dortmund and Real Madrid? Real Madrid won, you see? So this was not the type of conversation, but the conversation was more so about the truth. So yes, in my personal life, when I'm seeking companionship, this should be my goal. But then, as I am seeking somebody with whom I can share the message, this is where Sister Sarah's complaint to Brother Birkan comes in. What if Kadir comes and says, but Borussia Dortmund, like, I'm talking about verses and still you're trying to pull me into something totally off. Now, how am I going to defend myself? Because now it's a practical matter. There's somebody who is trying to take me away from this route. And the same thing applies with, let's say you're trying to defend the truth, but they're throwing a bomb at your head. This was the question, right? Are we going to wait for the Ababil, like the birds, to come and kill them? Are we not going to make the weapon? This is where now practicality starts kicking in a different way. But at the center, at the core of it, if my truth is based on seeking the truth, God's pleasure, not the benefit or gaining more power, then when it comes to here, even when I'm going to fight with the enemy, now practically I am fighting the enemy, still I'm going to fight with them on truth. Like there's this very common thing saying that war is trick. Have you heard about this? Deception. So there was a scholar who was saying that we are misunderstanding this narration too much, he says, as if this sounds like in war you can do anything. Says he gives an example from Prophet ﷺ, and it's in Badr. It's in Badr, if I'm not wrong, because the numbers were sensitive, so it should have been Badr. Like already the number of Muslims in that battle is 313, and the enemy is 3 times more. And in this battle, 2 or 3 Muslims were just going to join the army, but the unbelievers' army captured them on their path to there. And then they say, where are you going? To join army? They say, no, we are going to Medina for making trade. And then they let them go. And these 3 people comes to Medina and says to Prophet, oh, we tricked them. We would like to join the army. Prophet says, what did you tell them? Coming here for the trade? Yes. Then you're not, go back to Medina, you're not joining the army. Like, although 1-2 people would be so beneficial, so crucial, he says, we are here for fighting for the truth. If we are going to tell lies when defending the truth, it's going to be a contradiction. So Prophet sends those people to Medina saying that since you promised them that you're not going to join the army, you're not joining the army. So even when you are now at the position of defending with weapon, with cover, still you are preserving the truth. So the idea of being truth-centered is going to bleed into your actions at the very boundary now, because now it's a physical altercation. Still in there, you're acting by truth. So the conversation in here mostly is happening with the tenets. This is why what Brother Birkan said is true and perfectly at the heart of the matter. But then, of course, we always think with the opposites and we say, well, how about if they treat me bad? Am I still going to wait like this? No, you're going to treat them the way they deserve, but not deserve if somebody takes power at the center. You will treat them the way they deserve as someone who takes truth at the center. Prophet fought with them by weapon, by sword, but we know the case of Imam Ali, which is very famous, like during the war. So he was about to kill somebody, and then the guy spits at his face, and then Imam Ali doesn't kill the guy. He says, that's an interesting case, what's happening? And then he says, well, he asks Imam Ali, I spit in your face so that you get more angry and kill me quicker. Why didn't you kill me? He says, well, I was going to kill you for defending the truth for the sake of Creator, but you spit in my face and my ego get in, then I was going to kill you partially because you hurt my ego. Since the sincerity is now not there anymore, I didn't want to kill you and become a murderer. So this is the distinction that we need to make here. Otherwise, yes, they were in the battlefield, they were fighting, but they were also so sensitive to make this distinction.
So can we say that the ends do not justify the means, right? Not like how we go about it, in whose name we go about it. All of these shape the very ends as well.
Even the idea of end.
You're gonna destroy my paradigm.
Yeah. The idea of end is out of the paradigm now.
Yeah.
So that's a very different one.
Yeah.
But by the way, Zermo was waiting for her. I saw it.
Wow. I just have two questions from the text. So, like, when it comes to philosophy, it's like benefits, and when it comes to like the Quranic wisdom, it's virtue and God's pleasure. But like, isn't that also like a benefit? So, but like in philosophy, it's more like worldly benefits, while in Quranic wisdom, it's more, like benefit in the hereafter or something. Like, it is a kind of like, the question is, why would you seek Allah's pleasure, right? Like, at some point, we also have a benefit from that because you don't want to burn in hellfire and you want to. Like, I'm just thinking, like, what kind of benefit? Like, I'm thinking, like, this is also a kind of like a, and not only like the hereafter, like the akhirah benefit, but also the benefit in this world where you're again like a slave, but this free slave, and not enslaved to all the so many gods and means in this world. So this is kind of like seeking God's pleasure is kind of like a benefit to you, but not like the worldly, like, let's say, materialistic benefit, I guess. And the other question I had is, what does the author mean by saying that, where's that? Yeah, the ties of religion, class, and country to be the ties bonding communities. Like, I didn't get it. How is that different than like nationalism? Let's say if you have like the, country as the bond, and I mean, I understand there's like the concept of brotherhood in Islam, but like, I mean, I don't think that means that the only, I mean, I thought there should be other bonds between humans, humans being like a human, and not like based on religion and class and in a country, even from like a religious perspective. I don't know what you think about that.
I think on that question, like I had the same question, and I think the term that is originally used, correct me, is millah, right? Watan. Okay, so that I think has like we should pose ourselves the question of how do we define what a watan is, right? Like how do we conceptualize that? Like in our current moment, we conceptualize religion as like this specific kind of identity group, right? But how do we understand what deen is? How do we understand what watan is? I don't know about class, so I'm leaving that. But I think that's a very important question. Just my very brief note on the other point that you had, which is that I guess the benefit, how I understood the benefit being mentioned in the first paragraph is when I try to do things for my own desires, directly for my benefit, whereas acting for the sake of truth is I do something like doing something for God's pleasure is not even for paradise or heaven, but because that is what my reality demands. And I say, this is what truth demands. This is the only thing that I can do to live in accordance with my conclusions, right? So then that end result doesn't even become paradise, even though it puts me into a paradisical, let's say, state of being, because I experience the security and the but I'm not necessarily in a sort of a commercial exchange with the creator. Like I can't deserve eternal, nothing I do can fit into that equation in the first place, right? Of course, that doesn't mean that I don't desire it. I shouldn't ask for it. But I guess there's a nuance there in terms of doing something for what truth requires. But we can talk more about that. I think we should talk more about that. Yes. But I think Zareen had a comment first, so please go ahead.
I also had a question about the point of like in the Qur'anic wisdom, the principle of mutual assistance taking the place of conflict, but then sort of thinking about like the desires of the soul when it later says like its aim is to form a barrier against the lusts of the soul, urge the spirit to sublime matters, and so on and so forth. And then at the end saying, and the mark of reining in and tethering the soul and leaving the spirit free and urging it towards perfections is happiness in this world and the next. So I guess I got a bit confused by those points because it kind of makes it seem like there's a conflict between like me and my soul that I need to like push down, or like it says rein in and tether, which also kind of brings forth like the imagery of like I need to conquer my soul or like these like lusts and desires. And I know like we talked a lot about this during retreat, rather than like seeing like our desires in this sense, like seeing them more as like a sign or like a friend to point towards the one who is putting these desires there and also fulfilling them in an appropriate manner. So I was just kind of confused / wondering about sort of what it means to tether the soul but leave the spirit free. I guess I didn't understand that point.
Jazakumullah khair. Let's take the comment from the brother as well.
I have the exact same question. Like, I wonder if it's something lost in translation, but how can we tether the soul? And what does Imam Nursi Rahmatullah alayhi mean with leaving the spirit free and urging it towards perfections? What does Imam mean here by perfections? And what's the difference between like soul and the spirit here, I guess?
So in here, by soul, the word is nafs, and by spirit it's ruh. So this goes back to our last retreat when we were talking about Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. And in there, the major premise for the whole retreat was that human is given qualities, but those qualities are not there is no boundary set for these qualities in human. Like for animals, those qualities are bounded by their creation, by their quote unquote nature, by their fitra. But for human, no such boundary is set. And those boundaries are set by the Sharia, by the law. And the very thing, it is becoming a tool of your education, your training. So nafs can go beyond these boundaries. This is why I need to set and saying that up to here you can go, from here you cannot go beyond that. And this is how my training is happening. So this is why in there he says putting boundaries before nafs, and then freeing ruh in here. Why is he using, like, what's the distinction between nafs and ruh in there? So for the ruh itself, the way I understand it is, and especially the way Quran uses the word ruh, with the verse saying that God has blown from his own spirit to man. So what shall I understand from that? Is it that I am given godly qualities, or what does that mean? But ruh is what is given to human, with which I tend to understand, I tend to know my creator. So it is the tool set, it's a comprehensive tool set with which I get to know my creator. So this is why he is, as far as I understand, is saying that free the ruh, which is the part that would be in communication with your creator. But then these other aspect of you, which might get out of boundaries, your nafs, this is needed to be set within certain boundaries to stay within the educational purpose. Otherwise, if it transgresses, then you lose the purpose of your existence, your creation. So this is what I understand in there. And yeah, I guess this was the question. Was there another question?
Leaving the spirit free and urging it towards perfections. What's the word perfection trying to?
Like especially in Sufi tradition, there's this famous word insan kamil. Like perfection in there is kamil, kamalat. So to the perfection meaning, because as a human, like every child is born within certain potentialities, but you are honing these potentialities to get to know your creator in the best of the form. So this is what he refers to there.
Just two other questions that I wanted to highlight. I don't know if we addressed them fully, but one was about the question of benefits, right? Like, are we not also engaging for our own benefits? And the second question that I also shared was, how do we make sense of the phrase, the ties of religion, class, and country? We'll hear your response to that, inshallah, and then we can turn to Brother Birkan. Alhamdulillah that it is not that, because we do not live in the world view of that. But then we can end, I think we're ending around 45, right? With Brother Birkan's beautiful comments, inshallah.
Well done.
Do we have any?
Okay. So the first question was about benefits. Yes. So I have two answers for that. The first one is, this is a, okay, the first answer is, yes, both are apparently benefit, but one is like totally egocentric. Like the person doesn't have any huwa, any he in his life. It's all about me, me, me. And in this world of me, 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 I am talking about a benefit for the self. In the second, but on the other hand, in the Quranic perspective, the person starts seeing he and saying that there's nothing in me that belongs to me. Everything in me is from him. So in such a case, such a person's world is filled with he, like huwa. And I am trying to attract his pleasure. I am trying to attract his gaze, in a sense, as my only benefit. This becomes my only benefit. And again, this apparently personal benefit is somehow related to him, not egocentric. So there's this distinction. But the second level answer then becomes, who is I in here? Because the I that I say I is not an independent entity. Independent in the sense that I say I because he makes me exist. So in this case, even the benefit simply becomes, as long as I sense his presence, that's sufficient for me. If we pay attention to this, and Nursi talks about this as in his finer writings, because now we are studying the words, but as it comes to the rays, another book that he has written, things are getting a little finer. And in there he says, just sensing his presence becomes enough for you. Even because you say, who am I? Because I say I, but what is I? There's no independent I other than him giving existence to. So then whatever I sense is all his presence. Even the pleasure, I suppose, I get from him liking me there's nothing in me from me. Therefore, whatever is beautiful on me is again from him. So all these pleasures goes back to him. So it simply becomes, if I pay enough attention to, it's all about him. There's no me. So, but this is a finer level of appreciation if I get to there. For the other question was religion, class, and country. So as Sister Aisha was saying, we need to dwell on the meanings of these terms, because when we say religion, if I simply understand Muslims, and from Muslims, or our Muslims, like Sunni, or among Sunni, it is more like Hanafi Sunni, and among Hanafi Sunnis, Turkish Hanafi Muslim Sunni. Like this is not what is meant, shouldn't be meant in here. But when we talk about deen, we should take it more seriously, because do I feel indebted? Like I'll go with the dictionary definition here for a second. Deen means the people who feel indebted to the creator, not entitled. Deen means that, and I am given, so I am indebted to the one who provides to me, who gives to me. Do you feel the same? Do you feel the same? So the people who are collecting on the same point of being thankful towards the provider. We don't own anything and we are being provided. And now you can extrapolate it even for Muslims, because Muslim would be someone who is taking this as the stand. I mean, culturally, somebody might be considering themselves as Muslim and whatnot, but maybe perfectly feeling entitled to live in good houses or driving nice red stick shift cars and whatnot. So this is how I would read religion, for example. And when it comes to the word watan, this is a very hot debate within Turkish Muslims, I would say, because even they mention a hadith, which I'm not sure if it's a hadith, because they say it's a da'if or mawdu. And they say the love of watan in here is, I guess, country, is from among Iman, they say. And this is very widely narrated within Turkish circles, because Turks are very statist, like by birth. For nations, Turks have been very statist. And this perfectly aligns with the Turkish mentality of defending or sacrificing whatever for your state. But there's an issue in here, because like when it comes to, let's say, Turks, it has always been a state within around the Turkish nation. And more so nowadays, it's like somebody said that over the map, this is our region, and this is what we call as watan, and we are going to die for this. And if you die for this, as Kadir was saying, you're going to be martyred. Like our country is a secular country, but even at the most secular times of it, whomever dies, we're a martyr, and they go to paradise. Like, guys, you go believe in God, but why are you, when it comes to dying, you're abusing this feeling, right? People like the military love doing that. So watan in here, if we go back to Prophet ﷺ, what defined their religion? What defined the territory that they were living in? So they were under a message. The message was at the core, but there was some sort of an administration for taking care of people's lives. we need to separate the two. And when you are like no passport, no nothing in the society. So if people would like to come in to learn the message or get the Muslim way of living or submitting way of living, this is what they were for. In today's understanding, it's totally different. So if we read this word with today's overloaded meanings, it's going to sound the same. But if we go back to prophetic way of life and what is considered as a people living together, at the center was Prophet's house, which was next to masjid. This is the center of the government at the same time. Like, this really tells a lot. So as long as this is the system of worldview, you are supporting each other because you are sharing a common environment. So this level of brotherhood in there. For the class, I am not very clear in there either, because I don't know if what he means by that is, and I'm going to speculate about this. This is not a clear answer, but is he meaning maybe some, what I say might be totally wrong here, but is he meaning that, let's say you are an engineer and you are going to be hanging around with engineers because you are talking a common language. It might help you find truth in this way. I don't know. This might be a very weak and nonsense meaning, but in terms of class, I don't see it as like different economical classes or anything, but within society, there are different like working groups or like dads or moms, like these sort of roles in society we have. And this is defining some sort of a class. So you are around this role in society, you meet with people and exchange ideas or interact with people around this, rather than, oh, we are this made-up identity Turks and then made-up identity whatever Kurds, and then we fight with each other. This should, because the word, and one final thing, says negative nationalism. The negative in there, in the original language, he uses, what was the word?
Manfi?
Manfi. So negative rather than negative, maybe we should read it as negative, not negative, but negative, because manfi means negating the other. So if you are Turk, you are saying that we are the best, and others are negated, they are lesser than us. So this is what negative in there stands for. This sort of nationalism, and this is the really root of racialism and the feeling of superiority, or to put it in a more mild terms, be proud since you are a Pakistani Kaddish. Like, be proud of your nation. This is how we put it. We generally don't say that others are bad, you are good, but we are saying generally it's being said that be proud of. Why shall I be proud of it? Where does this pride come from? What is more in here that the other doesn't have? So this is a problematic attitude.
Jazakumullah khair. Inshallah, let's end with Brother Birkan.
Oh, please,
We are out of time, yeah, but if you want to say something quickly, you can. No? Okay. All right, inshallah, then let's end here. Jazakumullah khair, everyone, for your thoughts, comments, presence. Inshallah, we can continue with the fourth principle next time, but take notes so that you can give a summary next time. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم